Welcome to Grid Live Wrap-Up, NASCAR Cup Series at Pocono, the Tricky Triangle, and Denny Hamlin. One win per straightaway, third consecutive win. Is he going to make 4 in a row? Lewis Hamilton finally got his first Grand Prix victory with Ferrari, but it came at the expense of Mercedes and Kimi Antonelli, DNFing, plus Le Mans, the 24 hours of the great race, all that right here on Grid Live Wrap-Up. I am Joe Samaniego. With me, we have Kobe Lambeth from Grid Tonight and Matthew Bro from Grid Network TV and Grid Rising, which will be on the air tomorrow. Really curious about Europe in the week tomorrow, Matthew, so I encourage everyone to tune in. And of course, before we get started, we want to acknowledge some breaking news that occurred about an hour ago, unfortunately. About an hour ago, it was confirmed that Dennis Reinbold from Reinbold Racing over at the IndyCar Series, at the age of 65, passed away after a private battle with cancer. We know there's always some folks that make it public, their fight with cancer, and there's still people out there that keep it private, hoping to just get that win and celebrate privately. We are definitely thinking about Dennis's family, everyone at the NTT IndyCar Series community. Of course, everybody remembers he was at Indianapolis not too long ago, but I think it's just unfortunate reminder just how fragile life is. Live every day. As Matthew has said, do something awesome every day, I believe how you said it, with everything you have done. And Kobe will have more on Grid Tonight, Wednesday, your weekly motorsports news program. And we thank everyone in the chat room for tuning in, including Jamie. My condolences to his family, team, and fans. Definitely, it's been a shocking hour just to hear that news that come out, especially like considering we were just all in Indianapolis not even a month ago, and to see this news. And we encourage everyone, share your comments, questions, opinions with us on the air right here. We'll share it from the chat room on the live stream. And a big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, Matthew, Crystal, Nico, Gloria. And we're updating the second part with the Buy Me a Coffee YouTube Super Chat. Jamie is on that leaderboard with 2, so he is in second place right now. So that leaderboard will be updated shortly. And of course, across social media at Grid Network TV, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, and of course, YouTube right here where you're watching us, plus some memorable clips, especially Grid Rising. I know, Matthew, you and Tanner have been causing a lot of discussion on TikTok, so I encourage everyone to check out TikTok as well, too. And follow us right here on YouTube. Subscribe, hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of our programs. And overall, I want to say this. Pocono Raceway, I feel this track, I know when it had 2 track dates, some people felt like, do we really have to come here twice a year? It was so weird because it was always so close to each other compared to like Las Vegas was almost opposite end of the schedule. But today's racing, I felt like with a sold-out crowd, everything they're doing to the crowd, I'd like to hear everyone in the chat room. Do you think Pocono should have a second race date again and maybe just spread out the dates between the two? The number 11, Denny Hamlin, he would say, yeah, let's come here a second time, because something that happened today, Matthew, the number 11, which is such an iconic number in NASCAR, with Junior Johnson, Ned Jarrett, Kelly Yarborough, and Darrell Waltrip, who won 3 consecutive races with the number 11. Well, now add Denny Hamlin to that list. Another pole. He didn't have to start in the back this time. He now has his 3rd consecutive win. First time he's accomplished that in his long NASCAR Cup Series career, considering this is his 64th win. So he breaks the tie, sole position of 9th place in the all-time win list, 1 ahead of Kyle Busch. And he is closing in on Tyler Reddick in the standings for the regular series championship. I mean, what started off at I believe was over 100 points. Check this out, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. 19 points between the 2 drivers. Reddick on strategy, Matthew, he did not collect stage points. He was doing those pit stops before the stage end, and this is where I feel like Pocono, maybe the stages make the racing a little better, because we saw multiple strategies. Denny Hamlin stayed out, got the stage points, and he went out there and got the win on merit. overall, he is just closing in. He looks like he has the momentum. But the big thing you got to look at, though, the next group of races, because we're down to 10 races for the remainder of the season. Here they are. The San Diego Street Course. I think a lot of people are looking at SVG, but I'm wondering what could Tyler Reddick do against Denny Hamlin? Sonoma, again, probably SVG the favorite, but can Tyler Reddick outperform Denny Hamlin there, which Denny Hamlin almost won there until we saw Tony Stewart last lap pass, get around him. Chicagoland, that's going to be fun to see what people could do at that 1.5 oval. Might be strong. Atlanta, the mini speedway, could be chaos, but Tyler Reddick won the last time we were there. North Wilkesboro, a short track of points races, the race I'm so excited about. But anything can happen there. Indianapolis, we know 2011 could win there. We know Joe Gibbs Racing could win there. Iowa, that's going to be, I think, a little bit of a wild card between two. Richmond, well, Denny Hamlin almost won until he got walled by the number 3 a few years ago. New Hampshire, a good track for everyone there. And the wild card itself, but it's not when you're in drama. It's going to be settling the chase bracket for the chase at Daytona. So who has the upper hand when it comes to the next 10 races? Is it Denny Hamlin or is it Tyler Reddick?
Joe, I think that's a tough question there. And yeah, so 10 races to the chase already. That's kind of crazy to think about. It's interesting because when you think San Diego and you think Sonoma, you think it's automatically that's Tyler Reddick's cup of tea. Chicagoland could go either way with the two. Atlanta, obviously, Denny's great there, but Tyler Reddick was the last winner there. North Wilkesboro, I think, could go either way. Indy could go either way. And then, like you had mentioned, Iowa, I would play that more into Hamlin's hands, in my opinion. Richmond, Hamlin's hands as well. New Hampshire, Hamlin as well. And then Daytona could go either way. Obviously, Reddick is the past winner of that too. I think if you're riding the hot hand right now, you got to go with Denny Hamlin just because this is, he's on a 3-race win streak, all from pole. So it was the first time he has ever won 3 races in a row in his Cup career, which is crazy to me since he has 64 of them. But he also joined the elite list of Richard Petty, Bobby Allison, and Darrell Waltrip as the only drivers to ever win 3 consecutive races, all from pole position. So shout out to Denny Hamlin. But yeah, I think the fact that Hamlin has closed this gap so dramatically, and the fact that Reddick really hasn't been doing bad, it's just Hamlin's been doing better. I think the way I look at it is that if Hamlin can maintain a somewhat closer gap to Tyler Reddick to not let that 19-point lead in the standings, as you see, go to 40, 50 or whatever it is, I think if Hamlin continues and keeps that momentum, that flame that's currently on fire right now will reignite after these 2 road courses and then come back on for him to be able to get it done at Chicagoland. And then I think Denny Hamlin truly is a threat literally anywhere. So, yeah, I would argue for him, it's a good yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Looking at the result, I'll pull up some of these results here quickly. When Hamlin did finish in the top 5 on a road course last season, though. So, you never know. I know as soon as the next-gen era hit, Denny Hamlin, it seems like he kind of faded away into oblivion after being what I would argue is very good on road courses. But now I think Reddick's got this upper hand these next 2 race weekends. But I think once this TNT coverage hits the second race of it, because of obviously Sonoma being the first, I think we're going to see Reddick lose that lead a little bit more. And it would not surprise me if Denny Hamlin would be the regular season champion. And the last thing I want to say about that is you look at the standings. Besides Reddick's 5 wins to Hamlin's 4, 10 top 5s to Hamlin's 9, and then 12 top 10s to Hamlin's 11, I'd argue that Denny Hamlin's had probably a better season right now, just because. But, yeah, curious your thoughts on who do you think Hamlin will get any closer these next 2 weeks, or do you think it's going to have to, start back after the road courses?
I think it's going to have the road courses. It's great, the idea. We're going to go out there and get the win. Just be mindful that SVG is going to be the favorite to win, and I don't see, unless Trackhouse gives him the worst car ever, I don't see how he will lose. And of course, there's all sorts of factors, crashes, everything out of your control. At the end of the day, Denny Hamlin has to approach this too as do the best we can. Really, I would almost say enter the strategy as if you're racing at Darlington. Race the racetrack. Don't race yourself. Don't race the competition. Just race the racetrack. Try to get that best finish because you're ahead of Tyler Reddick. I mean, 19 points. That's a couple of stage points. That is just something where it could be 19 positions. But if you get stage points and Tyler doesn't, now you're really closing that gap in. As a standings show here, 10 races remaining in the regular season, 19 points could go a long way if you're Tyler Reddick and just trying to build that momentum. If you get stage points, I mean, if SVG gets the stage win and Tyler Reddick is second, Denny Hamlin is going to see that gap grow. So it's not all doom and gloom, but I'm really curious once we get to the 1.5 ovals and the stretch of ovals. I think Denny Hamlin's going to have that experience factor, but that's not a whole lot of advantage because Tyler Reddick has proven he knows how to drive really a great race. He got the great equipment, so I can't count him out. The one thing you brought up about how it seems like Denny Hamlin has a better season, Matthew, let's be honest. When you look at what the standings are, this close, 19 points, 5 wins to 4 wins. He only had one finish outside the top 15, and that was last weekend for Tyler Reddick. And all of a sudden, his big lead is now down to 19 points. Is the point system working better than expected this year with the 55 for the winner? Then you got the chase coming back. Is this really what is making it a lot closer? Is this what we wanted?
I think this is the best thing that NASCAR could have done, besides maybe a full season standings. But this is I guess, the second best thing they could have done, because you have the wins should be worth more. I would argue that. And I think adding those extra 15 points really does make a difference. As you can see, guys like Shane Van Gisbergen, who has 1 win already this season, that helps those extra 15 points for getting that victory, keeping him somewhat in the chase fight. But if you look at where Reddick and Hamlin are, it's crazy that Reddick's been incredible all season long, and he's got 1 more win than Hamlin. But if you subtract those extra 15 points that Reddick got from his additional win, this would be a 4-point gap to each other right now, based on obviously the 15 extra points for Hamlin winning 4 times as opposed to Reddick winning 5. So I think this is awesome what they were doing. I think the winner does deserve to be rewarded more, and just these two are on a runaway, and I absolutely love to see it. Tanner and I will talk about the O'Reilly series, and Justin Allgaier just absolutely obliterating the competition in this point standings with, I think he's got 4 wins himself. So the old guys still got it. But yeah, Denny Hamlin, the point system is playing into his favor. He is a driver. You could argue someone like Jimmy Johnson won the championship with 3 different types of thing. I would argue Denny Hamlin's come close to winning the championship in all these different types of standings. So yeah, the point system I think is working better than expected. And I think especially if we see a change with Hamlin and Reddick very soon, I think it's going to excite more people. Because could you imagine if just Reddick won at Daytona and it was just like, oh, winning in and that's it? Like that's just not as fun. I'm glad they got rid of that rule, and excited for the chase to continue in 10 races from now. So curious, Joe, your thoughts on the Hamlin and Reddick only 19 points apart so far. Even with these new point systems, it would only be a 4-point gap if it wasn't for the additional points rewarded. So do you think it's working better, Joe, or do you think it's, I guess, worse? Would be the opposite of better.
I think this is working really great, and just really shows I think they got the formula right. 5 wins early on in the season. I think a lot of people are starting to hear some of the grumblings. Oh, well, this was win if you're in. You know, anybody could still get a win, and they're in the chase. Is Tyler Reddick going to run away? But those grumblings are going away. They're being quieted down because we're seeing what Denny Hamlin's proven. Look, you could get a hot streak. You could get some wins, and that's the key. wins, which people seem to want wins more than anything, especially NASCAR, and you could get yourself in the fight again. You're talking about Denny Hamlin, like what? Over 100-point gap, and is now down to 19 points in 3 races after the Coca-Cola 600. I think this really shows that when it comes down to it, if you're consistent, hey, that's a bonus. That's good. Great deal. But if you're winning, it really is the icing on the cake where you get that win. It's more than just nobody could gain points on you. It's going to be, even if they swept the stages, nobody's going to outscore you. It's going to be, you're padding your lead. You are extending the advantage you have. You are not going to find yourself where a win and it just doesn't cut it. I overall think this system is working really well. And I think what Denny Hamlin's proven is when we get to the chase, because we hear a lot of people say, hey, you need to be in that top 6, maybe top 10 to have a shot at this championship. Denny Hamlin's proven, yeah, but if you're for some reason that 12th place driver, which you're going to be quite a ways back, and you get 3 wins in a row, now you are proven, hey, you could still have a say in this fight. You could potentially steal this championship. You might still need some luck from the others. But I think overall, it's just going to be one of those deals where I really like how this is working out, and I think it's going to set up for a great chase. In the chat room, Jamie, what's next? 4 in a row for Denison? I think we talked a little bit about this. Road course, I think SVG is going to have San Diego on lock. Do you agree with that statement?
Probably, unless we see, like, was it 2016 Sonoma Denny Hamlin before Tony Stewart won? Was that the correct year?
Correct, yeah.
So I guess if we see, I mean, Denny Hamlin, again, not a bad road course racer. Just in the next gen era, he's just been quite irrelevant. So I highly doubt he's going to win 4 in a row, but hey, he might pick it back up at Chicagoland, though.
Chicagoland, I think JGR, Team Penske, HMS will have 2 cars each missing the chase. I could see that. I mean, the way it's looking right now, when you look at the point standings, 2 Pocono Cup race, we asked this to everyone, do you think it should be good? That would be great. Always love the track, and a lot of history at this track in Pocono, which I think, and a tale of Chase 2.0 stories, Hamilton and Logano. And big thank you for the super chat. Your leader in YouTube motorsports and coverage, and it's like, thank you so much, Jamie. We really appreciate that. And of course, we encourage everyone, if you do YouTube super chats, you get your name on the leaderboard. As you see, Jamie now with 3, tied with Jason M, another viewer who has put in 3 super chats. Definitely means a lot to everyone at the team here when we get these super chats. So we really, from the bottom of our heart, thank everyone for their support as we're continuing to expand our media coverage right here on YouTube and across social media. We talked a lot about the points. Let's talk about Christopher Bell a little bit. Again in contention, but just missed out on that win. And he is just coming almost closer and closer, and it just seems like bad luck seems to take him out. You have the surprise story of the race, John Hunter Nemechek. He's not even in the top 20 in the points, but that team put him in a great spot. He ran a great race. And Eric Jones, again, another top 10 finish. And look at him, 15th in the points. All of a sudden, he is up there. Ross Chastain, he got a top 10. He needed it. I mean, we know he and the Trackhouse team are struggling. While he got that top 10 finish, unfortunately, Josh Berry, SVG, potential weapons of the week contenders, man, collected Keselowski, Zilch, and several others on the front stretch crash. Bubba Wallace involved in that crash too, which is not a factor. So overall, what was going on between Berry and SVG just causing all that early in stage 2?
Just unnecessary aggression. I think they were racing each other like that even prior to Austin Hill forcing them 3 wide and then inevitably wrecking 8-9 drivers. I was writing my recap for GridNetworkTV.com. Austin Hill actually finished the best out of everyone that was involved in that accident, and then I think Bubba Wallace bounced back to finish 21st or something like that. But everyone else was just worse or DNF'd. just unlucky breaks for the guys like Brad Keselowski as well. Just what a crappy race weekend for guys like that who you thought were going to build that momentum. Now you saw someone like Eric Jones capitalize on Brad Keselowski's misfortune, and now Eric Jones has made it tentatively into the chase. The fact too, but just to touch on these guys, weapon of the week potentially, unless you saw the O'Reilly race, then you might question that. So Tanner and I are definitely going to have a lot of fun on Grid Rising. But yeah, Josh Berry, SVG, I don't understand. I think SVG is getting so comfortable, and I think he's racing more aggressive, kind of like he did in Supercars as much as they allowed him to. But now he's doing it on the ovals, and I don't think people are appreciating it. But hey, you got to do what you got to do. But when you're battling for 30th, this was just one of those races for Shane that there was never a second in this race where he seemed like he was going to be in the top 15, top 20. He just was nowhere near there. And you could say that about the majority of this field too. But for Shane and Barry, I don't understand. I know, unfortunately for Barry, he's out of a ride tentatively. I assume if something opens up at front row or something in the O'Reilly series, he probably will get a seat. But right now, I mean, the first race weekend after he knows and this happens, it's not really a great start for him. So, yeah. And then also Connor Zilic, man, that kid, there's nothing that kid can do right now to get out of this. So hopefully, from, I guess, a fan perspective, you want him to go to San Diego. You want him to go to Sonoma. And top 10 would be awesome. Top 5 would be even more awesome. And a top 3 would be even more awesome. So, yeah, it just sucks for all those guys involved in just reckless racing. I think Austin Hill did kind of start it. Well, you would argue, Shane Van Gisbergen and Josh Berry racing each other side by side very aggressively, almost like on the restart after the Zane Smith caution, I think it was. And then inevitably Austin Hill putting him 3 wide. Not sure what happened there. And then everyone wrecks. So, yeah, potential weapon of the week contender. But, yeah, I know you mentioned Ross Chastain. Shout out to him. He's now up to 23rd in the standings. Absolutely horrific year for him. I think he's significantly better than what has shown this year. And then even Connor Zilic bounced back to 23rd, though, in this race. That's his best finish in quite a while. I know he had 3 last-place finishes in a row. So maybe there's momentum for Trackhouse. Maybe there's not. I think they're going to be the most confident team besides the entire Toyota field at this point. Coming into these next couple of race weekends, especially when you got 3 guys on your roster and Shane, Connor, and Ross that can go out and win on road courses. But yeah, that's my long story to wrap up the fact that Barry and SVG caused a huge wreck with Austin Hill as well.
Yeah, a huge wreck and very unnecessary that far back. And overall, I think SVG, he brings that aggression, as you pointed out. But I think a term we've used to hear quite a bit, not so much these days, give and take. There could have been some give and take in this situation. Okay, back out, but just put together a run. I know it's SVG ovals. I don't know how Pocono exactly is, but obviously not the greatest. So maybe that's why he wasn't exactly willing to give it up, but that put him in a bad spot. And then an interesting point here about Josh Berry from the chat room. That's Josh Berry's firing put a target on his back for the rest of the season with his fellow drivers. I was thinking this. The news coming that, hey, he's not coming back in 21 next year. That puts, I think, more pressure on him. Like, I need to show I can still do good in this car. I can make the best of it. And I almost wonder if that played a factor. Like, I am not settling in. I am not giving this up. But then you hit the wall. You get into SVG. You cause a crash. And I feel that's almost Josh Berry's tenure with the Wood brothers. It's a lot of crashes, a lot of mistakes. Really, Las Vegas, the only win he had last year, but then it just seems like he keeps crashing out to the point where I'm just like, hey, you might be fast when you have a good car, but the consistency is just not there. What are your takes on Josh Berry's firing?
I think it's interesting. I would argue, I don't know if there's much of a target as there is the fact that maybe the guys in the field think they can, I guess, bully him a little bit more, knowing he might not be in the field. I think his goal right now is to finish ahead of Noah Gragson, who is 14 points ahead, who's 29th in the standings, mainly because I think if so inevitably Barry's gone. I would love to see what happens to the 21 car, wink, wink. But I think if he goes anywhere, Josh Berry, I think it would probably be to Gregson's car. I'm not sure where Gregson goes, if he goes to O'Reilly, if he goes to maybe the RCR Cup seat. Nothing that we can confirm here, but you just got to think if you're Josh Berry, kind of like I had mentioned, if you're Riley Herbst and Corey Heim, just you got to try to go beat each other. This was obviously before Heim signed, and then Riley Herbst inevitably is probably going to Legacy, but that hasn't been announced yet either. So I think Berry and Gregson, the former Haas teammates, are going to – right, they were both on Haas. Yeah, I'm not losing it. Yeah, so it's been a long freaking couple of years, right? But, yeah, so I think if you're Josh Berry, you have to go and try to beat Noah Gragson. But, yeah, and also shout out John Hunter Nemechek. Talk about a legacy performance for that kid. As in happy birthday weekend to him. He's a grown man. He's not a child. But the fact that this was one of his best races in his Cup career high 42 laps led, he's showing that maybe with these legacy cars have the pace now. He's moving up in the standings. Eric Jones is leaping through the standings. And I don't think they're both going to get in the chase. More likely that neither of them do. But yeah, shout out. I mean, John Hunter Nemechek, Toyota's just been firing on all cylinders. They have 7 cars in the top 16 right now. And little did you know that it would be Eric Jones would be the 7th in the legacy Toyota. So shout out to him. But yeah, like Jamie had mentioned, there could be a target on Barry's back. But at the same time, I think Barry has enough talent, but I don't think the Wood brothers, I think that's a significantly large drop from being the satellite Penske car, but nobody's really succeeded in the Wood brothers car besides getting the one not fluke wins like Harrison Burton and Josh Berry have gotten. But Ryan Blaney did pretty decent in the car. But other than that, Matt Benedetto made the playoffs but never won. Paul Menard, same thing, very close. I think he made the playoffs or almost did, never won. So yeah, that's all I got. My long rambling answer. I know you answered it, Joe, but yeah, Barry. I guess where does he go? I would love to see Barry either drop down to O'Reilly but I think he's probably going to get that front row car if Gregson drops to O'Reilly or Cup. At the end of the day, Barry's probably got to look for his own sponsorship money now. That considering Wood Brothers, pretty sure with Ford Motorcraft, the team has most of those sponsorships. Well, and if you're in Noah Gregson's case, he's one of the few front row guys that I think brings his own sponsorship for the most part. So that's what happens at the end of the day. It's all about money.
It's all about money, the equipment you have. I mean, it's easy to say, Penske's not exactly having the year they like to have, but still, Blaney's running strong. He's in the top 10. We talked about Austin Cindric. He's in the chase right now. Logano, some places just bad luck or no speed. Josh Berry, that satellite team of Penske, I mean, they got to do something. And, yeah, I think he has to start, if he wants to stay in Cup, making the deals, making something work. Front row might be a good spot for him. Interesting comment here, because I know everyone's been talking about Jesse Love. I can see Cindric go to the Wood Brothers and Love going to the number 2 in 2027. I only think if Cindric for some reason says I want to have a legacy with the Wood Brothers, but I just don't see that. Your thoughts on that, Jamie? I mean, Matt?
No worries. I think Jesse Love is playing chess by signing with the Wood Brothers, considering they're with Penske, obviously. You don't know with Cindric. I know Tim Cindric's affiliated, Austin's father, but Austin's been running really well. Does Joey Logano do something that we don't expect in the next couple seasons, and that's possibly retire? He's getting up there in age. And then does Jesse Love take the 22? Really don't know what's going to happen. Nothing obviously has been announced, but that's really the only way I could look at it. Is I don't think Jesse Love would take a Cup ride in a team that's finished without the wins, would finish 30th or worse the last decade pretty much, besides Ryan Blaney's years. I don't think he would take that opportunity unless there was something else. When Matt DiBenedetto initially signed with the 21 team, wasn't there something like Austin Cindric was supposed to get the 21 and Matt DiBenedetto was supposed to go to Penske or something like that when the whole Brad Keselowski thing happened? And then they ended up none of that really happened because Cindric went right to Penske. So I don't No, I guess which I think Austin Cindric's one of the most liked drivers in the garage from a driver standpoint as well as a fan and personnel standpoint. So I think if he wants to stay connected, I could totally see them swapping in 2028 maybe, but in 2027, not not entirely sure. I think Love will probably be in the 21 and then maybe 2028, 29. Maybe Love is in the 22 or maybe he is in the 2. So with the way silly season happens, you never know. I think with Penske in our chat room, in our private chat room, when Cindric was supposed to go to Wood Brothers, but then Keselowski was like, "Yeah, I'm leaving Penske to co-own a different team." So that could possibly happen somewhere. So I don't know if Joey Logano's got plans that he hasn't announced yet, Joe, but maybe if you're Jesse Love, that seems like the way you would go, considering I think Jesse Love was a favorite for the legacy car, but then all of a sudden John Hunter Nemechek was re-signed and Riley Herbst was potentially re-signed or signed. So I can't wait till it all happens though. I'm pretty excited for that.
Silly season is going to be really fun to see as everything continues to play out. Jesse Love going to the Wood Brothers. I mean, they get good equipment. Yeah, they still have to put in the work, the effort, the Wood Brothers, and I feel like they got the team to do it. What I really like about Jesse Love and the Wood Brothers, this is the feeling I've had about the Wood Brothers since they had Blaney. With Blaney, you knew he was upcoming star. He had the talent. He was going to go to Cup someday and someday race with Penske. He wasn't going to be in 21 forever. Matthew Benedetto, I felt like, okay, that's just sort of to fill the seat. Maybe he'll get a win and maybe he could extend his career, but he didn't. Paul Menard, the same way. He got that one win at the Brickyard 400 long ago. Didn't do much. Then you got to where we had Harrison Burton, upcoming driver, potential, but then didn't make the best of it. One win, but he's out of a ride. Then here comes Josh Berry, and I thought, okay, Josh Berry just finished a year with Stewart Haas Racing. Of course, we know they closed up. This could be his lifeline. He gets that win in Las Vegas. That was, 3 or 4 races into the season last year. And I thought, okay, he's in the chase. Go out there, just keep running top 10s. You're going to have yourself a good time with. No, that did not happen, and still not happening. So at the end of the day, I think Jesse Love, what I like about him, he reminds me of Blaney coming in this situation. Talented kid, has potential, but he has to make the most of it, or else you're going to end up like, unfortunately, Barry, Menard, to Benedetto, Alva Wright, and it's getting harder and harder to find good quality rides in the Cup Series. Overall, when it comes to the NASCAR Cup Series, we talked a lot about Tyler Reddick. He leads the points standings in the grid ranking. He closed the gap. Kimi Antonelli had that bad race, so grid ranking much closer. Follow that across social media. When you look at the 10 remaining races for this season, we've already talked about all of them, from the San Diego circuit, Sonoma, Chicagoland, Atlanta, North Wilkesboro, Indianapolis, Iowa, Richmond, New Hampshire, and then Daytona. You then got to look at what's going on with the stands, and especially outside the top 10. William Byron in 11th place. You know the team was not anticipating that beginning of the year. They thought they would be up in the top 5, I think, because they were in the championship 4 last year and really had a good shot until the tire blew. Chase Briscoe, 12th. You know they had to feel like this was going to be our year coming into it after last year. Nothing. Bubba Wallace, second in the points for a while, now 13th. 14th, Shane Van Gisbergen, still up there, really. Those road courses, if he could score 2 more wins, I think he'll be safely in the chase at that point. But if for some reason he doesn't, he might be in the danger zone. Eric Jones, if he could continue this top 10 streak, and especially in the ovals, SVG's ahead of you, you could probably get around him. Austin Cindric, that team seems to either have speed or no speed. Brad Keselowski, I remember it would seem like about a month ago, he was talking about how he was the only team to have all 3 cars, him, Priest, and Buescher, in the chase. Now only one of them. So that has not been working out because he is 17th after crashing out today. You got a 3-time champion, Joey Logano, in 18th. I know this is an even year, but it's not the playoff format, so there is no Final Four. You got Ryan Preece, 19th, McDowell, 20th. He's had some good runs. He's just still very quiet compared to his two teammates of Daniel Suarez and Carson Hocevar. Now, nobody has mathematically been eliminated from making the chase. But looking at 30th and worse, oh man, I feel like you're going to need a lot of good luck. Josh Berry, 30th, and of course, he's out of the ride next year. Ty Dillon, 31st. Alex Bowman, 32nd. Rumors about what's going to happen with him. We know injury, vertigo, caused him to be sidelined. Cole Custer, 33rd. That Haas factory team had one good run, but that's it. Connor Zillers, 34th. Another week, another crash, another disappointing finish. He's still ahead of Cody Ware, 35th, but he needs to turn his season around. Which drivers do you feel are most in danger of missing the chase?
Obviously, the last 6 that you mentioned are not going to make it unless Connor Zillich turns into a Riley series, Connor Zillich from last season. But honestly, I think the guys you had mentioned with Keselowski, Logano, Preece, and McDowell, just those 4 specifically, because Keselowski, especially, again, he's just like Denny Hamlin, very good on road courses in Gen 6, got to Gen 7, been irrelevant. So Joey Logano, same thing, like kind of not really the best on him, but Logano's just on a free fall with no good luck at all. Ryan Preece can do great on road courses, but again, not really his strong suit. Michael McDowell, this is a chance for him to pick up. The problem is he's like nearly 49 points to the cut line. Cindric is a pretty good road course racer, in my opinion. I think he's very underrated. They don't give him enough credit for what he can do on road courses. I think if he can make up that gap, he might be like 17th by the end of Sonoma, but I still don't think he's going to pass Cindric. And then you look at the guys who are like currently in, it depends on really who has like a rough couple weeks. If Shane doesn't do well at either of these road courses and this aggression on the ovals bites him in the butt on these road courses, maybe Shane falls out. Eric Jones, I know Legacy is figuring it out. Do they continue to figure it out, or does he fall back out? Austin Cindric, though, I know I mentioned I think he can continue the pace. Maybe he falls back out too. So I think that border is going to be close, but I think guys like William Byron were a little worrisome, considering he's got 2 teammates in the top 6, and he has been a top 2 Chevrolet driver the last probably 5 years in this sport. William Byron has been, and he just has not had a great year, and he's still near the top 10. Pretty impressive. Bubba Wallace, I would say for him too, the inconsistency lately, and none of it's really been his fault. I think Martinsville was his fault, but the rest of them just getting caught up on other stuff has bit him very hard, and he has fallen drastically. And road courses, he's been getting better at them. Still not his cup of tea, or I guess cup of Coca-Cola at the end of the day. But if he does a rough couple weeks these next 2 and Shane makes up that gap, which Shane probably will, considering who Shane Van Gisbergen is, Bubba might be getting towards the cut line, which is not a great thing. I think he's still under contract for next season, but I'm not. He will stay regardless, obviously. But it just makes you worry a little bit more considering how good Tyler Reddick has been. But yeah, pretty much all of them. Chase Briscoe, I think, will be fine. He'll get hot, and then when he gets hot, he'll jump from like 12th to probably 8th. But other than that, I would say the top 9, I would say the top 9 are probably locks by now. I know you said nobody's mathematically eliminated, but unless Cody Ware turns into rookie mode NASCAR 25, then I don't think he'll make it. I really don't see Alex Bowman even getting into the top 25 in the standings. There's really a big gap between like 25th and 30th, a lot more than you would think. So yeah, that's kind of my long spiel about those guys. I still think I pretty much, Joe, I would end by saying that out of the top 16, I would say 14 of them right now at minimum are going to make the chase. I just don't, unless Brad or Joey get hot. I think those are the 2 guys on the outside looking in that I think can get in. Priest has got to be driving with a chip on his shoulder, especially with the RFK charter situation. We don't know what's going to happen with Ryan Priest or if Chris Buescher. I know there's been rumors that teams are looking at Chris Buescher if he jumps ship for a potential opportunity. I know he's been with Ford for, it seems like, ever, under contract, even though he drove for JTD Daugherty in a Chevrolet. I would still say he has been a Ford driver for at least the last decade. But yeah, your thoughts, Joe? Do you think we're going to keep this chase lineup the same?
I think the chase lineup is going to be changing a lot. I'm curious to see if Brad Keselowski could rebound. I mean, his hopes are Daytona. I mean, I think that's the big one. Indianapolis, if he has a strong run. Atlanta. Chicago could be good, but I just don't have faith in him when it comes to this road course, street course of San Diego and Sonoma. Eric Jones, I think, could be a surprise in North Wilkesboro. He is a short track racer. He could get something done if he gets a good car. So overall, I think when you're looking at, I would say potentially the top 18, I feel, have a shot of making the chase. The only reason why I say 18 instead of 19, Priest, I think North Wilkesboro could be good, but I think he's going to need luck in the other tracks. Michael McDowell, I know he's going to be looking at 2 road courses, but with SVG, I think the best he could do might be a top 5 in each of those races, which will still be a boost. But then the rest of the season, he's really going to have to have his word cut out. And then nobody in the top, outside the top 30, I think, has a shot at him. I mean, you mentioned 16th place in the points. Austin Cindric has 355 points. You go to 20th, that's 306 points. 25th, Todd Gilliland, 283 points. And then it just really, Josh Berry's at 200 points flat. He's going to need wins to get in. Same with Ty Dillon, 195. Bowman, 188. But he's missed quite a lot of races this year, so those are valuable points he missed out. Zilich had 162, and Cody Ware 138 points. It's just, yeah, they're going to need the others to have the most significant bad luck possible to have any hope of making the chase this year, and I just don't see that happening. I mean, for me, I think we talked a little bit about him, Shane Van Gisbergen. It's like, yeah, you could get the 2 road course wins, and you'd probably be safely in, but you still need to have a decent race weekend at Chicagoland. Atlanta, if you can have a solid weekend, stay out of trouble, you're in good shape. North Wilkesboro, I just don't know how he's going to pan in that track. Indianapolis Motor Speedway might be good for him. Daytona's a wild card. It's just these next 10 tracks, really, I don't think anybody, because besides the road course, because of the SCG, but I know in the past, if we had Homestead, we would say that's Tyler Reddick or that's Kyle Larson's track to win. The only one I could say maybe there's a favorite is Richmond, and that's Austin Dillon, just the way he's been the last 2 years, and he would love to go out there and get a win this year. Something I'm curious to hear about your thoughts. Some people have been posting online. Atlanta will be the 8th race for Austin Hill this year, driving the old 8 car. And of course, the last time when Dale Sr. passed away, 3 races later, Kevin Harvick won in that race. Do you think there's any shot maybe Austin Hill could be a winning contender at Atlanta?
There's always a shot, Joe. Do I think it's possible? Sure. Do I think it's going to happen? Absolutely not. With all due respect to Austin Hill, I think he's an incredible talent, especially in the O'Reilly series. But RCR's equipment just really is nowhere near what it was in 2001. And also, Austin Hill and Kevin Harvick, that's the only time they're probably in the same conversation in terms of talent level. I think Kevin Harvick was always going to be a prodigy. Austin Hill, he's obviously won championships or come close to winning championships in the lower series, but that Atlanta, I know it's his home track. I know he does great in O'Reilly, but I'm trying to think his Cup starts. I didn't realize Austin Hill's been making Cup starts the last 5 seasons, at least 1 or 2 every year. Has he raced at Echo Park Speedway? I'm looking right now, Joe. Let's see. Yeah, he finished 37th in his what would be 3rd Cup race ever. So that's accident, not really. Can't really give him crap for that. So maybe this is the best equipment he's going to have, because that was in a Beard Motorsports car, and now he's going to be in the RCR number 33. Maybe Austin Hill has a chance at a top 10. Obviously, this was his best finish of the year in the Cup Series at 18th. Chicago Street Course, he was in the top 10 in the Cup Series last year. So Austin Hill, it would be such an awesome story to see it happen, but I think the likelihood of it happening, Joe, is very, very slim.
Yeah, I think it's pretty slim. It's just one of those deals where the nature of how that racetrack works, if you could survive, you could put in a good shot, but you still need a lot of factors to work in your favor to be in the winning contention at Atlanta Echo Park Speedway. And a fourth super chat from Jamie. Thank you so much. $15. Will Heim win a cup race before Zilich in 26 or 27?
I think if we're talking about 2027, that's if Zilich is with Trackhouse or not. And crap, he might even win one of these next two road courses. I don't know. I think Heim will adjust better to this Cup car, but it's tough. These are two generational prospects we're talking about. And then we'll have Jesse Love most likely in the Cup Series. So watching Heim, Zilich, and Jesse Love next season is going to be much must-see television with three of the best prospects I think the sport has seen in quite a long time. But Jamie, thank you again for the $15 total, especially Grid Rising last race weekend too. It means a lot. But yeah, if I had to go out on a limb, just the way the season's going, if Zilich does not win one of these next two road courses, I think Corey Heim has a legit shot at winning a cup race before he does. Unless Zilich is in the Hendrick Motorsports 48 car or Aspire number 71. Or depending on McDowell. But those are my thoughts. What about you, Joe? What are you thinking?
I'm thinking Heim might get that win unless, like you said, the 48 rumors come true. I mean, that's the only way. I just do not see how Trackhouse could overcome such a deficit of where they are now, and next year all of a sudden be that big of a winning contender. They could shock me and make that happen, but I just don't see it unless there's some sort of drastic changes. So overall, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And the last question before we wrap up, does Pocono offer a good race? I think so. I think with the stage breaks and the way the strategy works, I think this is one of the few tracks I sort of like stage breaks. What are your thoughts, Matthew?
See, I'm a pro stage guy. I know a lot of people aren't. I'll always say that. I think Pocono has been putting on a show, and as much as I love it, it's like my second home track. Being up in the Northeast, I would still argue, even though it's a great race, I don't really think any other track really needs two dates. There's so many damn tracks that exist. I like the idea of going to each one at least most time once. Obviously, you have the outliers in like Daytona, Las Vegas, Echo Park, Homestead, Phoenix, so on and so forth. But I like in Kansas. I could just keep naming them. There's a lot we go to more than once as a sport. But I think we should decrease that. And there's so many options out there, like Welcome Back Chicagoland. That will be super exciting, even though nobody's buying tickets. That's unfortunate. Let's bring back Kentucky, baby. But Tanner's going to make fun of me tomorrow for saying that out loud. But yeah, your thoughts, Joe? And besides Pocono Good Race, are you okay with one race per track, or do you think a Pocono deserves a two?
I wouldn't mind if certain tracks rotated a second race date. I think Pocono should be in that discussion. I feel like they have such a long history. They've produced what is good racing. Now, if you're talking about people wanting that entertainment value, it's not a Talladega. It's not a short track. And even then, now the short tracks are not what they used to be when you look at 90s short track racing. The stage breaks, they made it where, I mean, you had different pit strategies when it came to fuel. Who's staying out before the stage break? Who's keeping out? And, I really like that aspect. If it was just a straight 400-mile race, the strategy would be more, okay, who's going to short pit, try to do the overcut, undercut, and when the cautions come out, which is fine as well, too. But I feel this racetrack is so big, if you could see the stage breaks and how it's so big, you can make a pit stop, not lose a lap. Now you got something where it should work in the road courses, but we know how that went with NASCAR a few years ago, trying no stage breaks and so on. But overall, I think Pocono could be a good contender for a rotating second straight. Another track I would offer up there, this might be controversial for some, but hear me out. I think Darlington, keep the Southern 500 for sure, but maybe on certain years, it's just only the Southern 500, and maybe some years you have the Goodyear 400 and the Southern 500. Darlington, I think, does good racing. The crowd is good, but I think there might be some other tracks where, okay, if we're not Darlington that year, we're at another track that could use the second date that year, and then it goes to Darlington. That's where I think it could work out. The tracks I feel that are worthy of 2 days right now are Charlotte, especially since we're keeping both of them in the ovals, the 600 and the 400-mile race. Daytona, Talladega, I would say so, but if you notice, I didn't say Bristol. I think Bristol should be just one race a year. I mean, you can't sell out the Food City 500. Just make it a 1-year night race, and maybe that will return the statue. And I know some people say it's a unofficial crown jewel. I think if it's just only down one race a year, maybe you help the demand. But yeah, be interesting to see how NASCAR does all the seasoning for 2027 and beyond. With that said, I know, Matt, you got to get going. So before we let you go, what was your shining moment from the race weekend?
Yeah, I got to finish this gridnetworktv.com story. Luckily, I don't think NASCAR's updated the photos yet for Denny Hamlin's victory. But one shining moment, Joe, there's usually the shining moment. There's a couple of them, I would say. I don't want to spoil too much, but I would say the Unks still got it a little bit. We'll touch on that with Grid Rising too. But Denny Hamlin going out there, going back to back, first time in his career. The greatest of all time in Formula One, Sir Lewis Hamilton, which you'll touch on. Finally, back the top upon. I guess he's back on top of the top step of the podium. Okay, I got it there with win number 106, first with Ferrari. Le Mans too, Kamui Kobayashi. He's still got a little bit in him, so shout out to that Toyota team for those shining moments. Just another great race weekend. I know you guys touched more on that. I would love to see more focus on an event like Le Mans, especially considering the prestige of it, but with the way the other schedules work out, more unlikely. Obviously, you have overlap with NASCAR, Formula One. I'm trying to think. I wanted to touch on two guys really quickly, and that was Daniel Suarez and Eric Jones. I believe this is Eric Jones' 7th or 8th straight top 20 finish, and this is Daniel Suarez's 12th straight top 20 finish, especially for a guy like Daniel Suarez, who kind of got the absolute worst of the worst during his tenure at Trackhouse at the end, and to come back and be 8th in the standings at this point. I think they're listening to him, and I think he deserves that. So I think I wanted to shine a moment on Daniel Suarez and Eric Jones. I mean, I think Eric Jones, if you put him in a Joe Gibbs car again, you put him in a 2311 car, you put him in any top team, I think Eric Jones will make the chase every single season. But he's going to get close with this legacy team. And then Jamie's one shining moment being Denny Hamlin. I agree too. So yeah, Formula One coming up next. Obviously, a lot to talk about in that one. I also agree Bristol only one race a year. And then obviously Le Mans coming up too. So very excited to hear what you guys have to say. Thank you once again. And then Grid Rising, we have a lot to talk about as well. So make sure you come back right to this YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, X, I believe we're on too. Make sure you come back tomorrow around 7:15 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll be chatting even more.
And thank you so much, Matthew. Encourage everyone at gridnetworktv.com, and especially the NASCAR recap. Thank you so much, Matthew. Let's switch over to Barcelona, Spain, and Lewis Hamilton getting the job done again.
Yeah, and with Lewis Hamilton's victory today, we also saw Mercedes' winning streak get snapped this weekend in the Barcelona Catalunya Grand Prix after Hamilton raised the bar and continued to add to his record. Most Grand Prix wins in Formula One history. Was his 106th career victory, his first as a Ferrari driver, winning for the first time since the 2024 Belgian Grand Prix. Hamilton leads Spain second in points, and Ferrari is ahead of McLaren and Red Bull in the constructor stand, become the first team, not named Mercedes, to win this year. But it took a virtual safety car that Fernando Alonso came to a halt on the track, and without it, Mercedes would have had the upper hand, but their lead driver, Kimi Antonelli, had his car break down for his first DNF and non-podium finish of 2026. Hamilton is now the only driver to score points in every single Grand Prix race this year. Joe, do you think that this win today by Hamilton, can this sway the momentum in Ferrari's favor, or are they just aided by a well-timed virtual safety car?
For today, they were aided by that well-timed safety car. I mean, it was no secret that when it came to strategy, Mercedes felt like we have the upper hand. We have to do just one more stop. Lewis Hamilton has to do a couple more. The one thing you got to remember, though, when it comes to situations like that, we've seen it in the past, particularly when Lewis Hamilton was with Mercedes. They'll have more pit stops, but they have much fresher tires to, at the end, take the win with a late pass. I don't know if Ferrari had the pace to do that. It looked like they may have. But you know what? With that safety car coming out, that just made the pathway for victory much easier for the team. They didn't have to worry so much about things out of their control. It just literally fell in their lap. And the timing worked out where Lewis Hamilton was able to get in, get out, just as the safety car period was ending, allowing him that big win. This has to feel good for Ferrari and for everyone there in Italy, because at the end of the day, when you're looking at this Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton looked strong all weekend, outperformed Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc, another DNF. I mean, the team has that positive momentum of, hey, we got this win, our first win of the year with this new regulations. There was a celebration, and you saw Charles Leclerc joining Lewis Hamilton there with the entire team. That's really good for team morale. I think they have the ingredients to be contenders week in and week out. We know traditionally they have better starts than Mercedes right now this year. That could change, but you could keep applying the pressure. At least bring the fight where it's not going to be a cakewalk, where you're going to have Kimi Antonelli pushing the limit each and every week. Same with George Russell. They could push that limit because they know they're being chased, more room for mistakes and potential opportunities for them. And for me, Cody, just to see Lewis Hamilton second in the standings again, I think if somebody had told me at the beginning of the year Lewis Hamilton would be second in the points after Monaco, I would be skeptical, just because I would keep assuming, okay, you got the two Mercedes drivers, they're looking good. I would assume Charles Leclerc will have a better season, and of course the McLaren drivers. This has to feel good for that team. This has to feel good for Lewis Hamilton. So I think this win long term is going to feel good and feel that hunger for another championship.
I've been thinking of a way to describe Ferrari's day. What's that saying, Joe? Is that I'd rather be lucky than good? Yeah, and I think that's the best way to describe what happened today, that Ferrari just got lucky with the well-timed safety car after the NASCAR race. And I went back and, watched that part of the Grand Prix. It was just a perfect storm with the time of that virtual safety car, where Russell and them had to, they had to slow down, and then Hamilton was happened to be at the right place at the right time, got that pit stop, and as the field behind him was slowing down, he exited the pits, and that was the race, decided in that moment. So in that case, Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari, they were good today, but they certainly relied on a bit of luck there with the virtual safety car. And sometimes, when you don't have the outright pace, sometimes you just get lucky in those situations. But I certainly agree with you. I think it would be good for Ferrari, and team morale, especially the morale on a personal level for Lewis Hamilton. If you've seen his social media page, he posted a photo of himself saying, "Remember who you are." And Lewis actually credited the fans for, helping him get back on form, especially on a mental standpoint, because Lewis has been open. We remember that great title battle. It was 2021, right? Him and Max Verstappen in Abu Dhabi, on the debacle that happened after that. Honestly, given where Lewis Hamilton's, been since that, I felt like that losing that championship battle broke him, in certain ways, because he didn't seem like the same guy anymore. As we saw him drive Mercedes cars in the years after that were not as good. And then, he got to a point in Mercedes, when things were not going well at all. And then he decides to go to Ferrari. And he struggled, quite a bit last year, with Ferrari. Although he did get some good results, it was not the same Lewis Hamilton that we once saw. And he even talked about openly, to the media, saying that Ferrari should probably replace me, because, he was saying like he's no longer that guy anymore. But he heard what fans were telling him, like in the comments after, like, poor race after poor race for Lewis Hamilton. And he remembered the fans telling him, "Remember who you are, that you are Hammer Time, that you are that multi-time world champion and Formula One's all-time winningest driver, that you are still him, Lewis." And Lewis, revealed today that those words from fans, resonated with him, that he believed that he still had some left in the tank. And after winning today in the Spanish Grand Prix, Lewis proves, that if you give him if you give him a good enough car, that he can still get a win in Formula One. And if Ferrari had the overall best car this season, we might see Lewis, winning multiple Grand Prix races, per season. And seeing him second in the championship right now, I feel like we're kind of rewinding the clock a bit. And just go and show, although Lewis is, getting up there in age now, he still hasn't, lost his raw pace and his ability to get it done behind the wheel. So it was a really good day for Lewis Hamilton in that number 44 for our team. But for his teammate in the second straight race, Charles Leclerc crashed out. But for Mercedes, it was their third consecutive race with only one car scoring points. George Russell didn't score any points in Canada due to mechanical issues and penalties at Monaco. Today, Kimi Antonelli's car broke down, and he didn't score any points either, but maintains the championship lead over Hamilton. So, Joe, each Mercedes driver has had one mechanical failure, and Leclerc, he's had a terrible last two races. At this point, are there any concern about reliability with the Mercedes? And what about Leclerc's woes on his side of the Ferrari garage?
Starting off with Mercedes, I feel at the end of the day, they can't be too concerned. These are brand new regulations. If y'all remember, with the new regulations, there are teams that are struggling a lot worse. Look at Aston Martin. I mean, Fernando Alonso got that point at Monaco just because the way Monaco works out, being Monaco, but his teammate Lance Stroll is still pointless. Cadillac, they're a brand new team. McLaren, you climb up the ladder a bit. They're improving, but they're still not at the same level as they were a year ago. So unless for some reason this reliability issue is something that the Mercedes team just cannot figure out and they continue having one car finish each race, I don't see why there should be a great concern. If it becomes a pattern, you're going to have one car finish race because there's just something with the reliability that's not there. As long as the other teams are having two cars each consistently, you're not going to be at real danger of losing constructor titles. And I feel Mercedes is still the favorite when it comes to the constructor titles. So overall, I wouldn't be too concerned. But anytime you have mistakes, that just puts a little bit more pressure because that gap closes in. Look what Lewis Hamilton did today. For Charles Leclerc, his side of the garage, 2 DNFs in a row, that's not a good feeling. I think at the end of the day, if there's one thing that win from Lewis Hamilton will help, everyone will sort of have those nerves of that first win. Sometimes, especially new drivers, when they're looking for that first win because they're a rookie or they're brand new in a series or a team, that first win feels like it's so important to get that first win to prove I belong here. A lot of weight on your shoulders. Well, that weight is now gone. Lewis Hamilton got that win. Let's focus on the next race. Let's focus on making this car really good. Let's just do everything we need to do to finish the race and score points. And I think as long as they score points, especially top 5, Charles Leclerc will be feeling really good about that because at the end of the day, 2 DNFs, both of them resulted in him crashing into the barriers. It's not a good deal. Finishing the race, getting those points, that will be a great deal. That will be a confidence boost, and I think that'll be really beneficial for not just him, but that Ferrari team. And at the end of the day, with Lewis Hamilton getting that win, I think they're going to be in a really good spot. So for both teams, I wouldn't be too concerned as long as it doesn't become a frequent pattern of reliability and not finishing those races.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to be concerned about at the moment. What happened? What happened to George Russell? In Montreal, was unfortunate. What happened to Kimi today, was unfortunate. 2 incidents there, out of the driver's control, and then Monaco was a debacle. With all the penalties we saw there, and then with another can of worms that was open up, Joe Pierre Gasly having his Monaco podium restored, and then it set off quite a firestorm across the Formula One community because they believe it sets a dangerous precedent there. So that's another story I'm sure that will continue to be talked about in the days ahead from Monaco. And then the situation, Charles Leclerc, just brutal. Remember Monaco last term when he went into the wall? He blamed the brakes, and saying that the brake package is not good. And he admitted that Lewis Hamilton was right about where they needed to go with the brake package. So he decided to switch to Lewis's brake configuration because Charles wanted to go in his own direction. He felt like his did not work and that Lewis was right. And then we get to the Grand Prix today, and Charles Leclerc, had an issue with the car that ended up ruining the race. And from a perspective of looking at Leclerc singularly, I want to see what he's going to do if this stretch, ends up continuing. Like I know it's really hard for certain drivers when they see their teammate, doing so well. And it's been two brutal races for Charles Leclerc, while Lewis Hamilton, has performed extremely well, on the podium and scoring and scoring points all throughout the season. While Charles Leclerc, he's kind of getting left behind right now. And Lewis is, starting to move into that role at number one driver, at Ferrari, since Charles, has been there for a long time now compared to Lewis. A lot of people looked at Charles as the number one driver at Ferrari, and now it looks like Lewis, could be claiming that role from Charles, especially these struggles continuing at some point for Charles. You can't just keep saying that it's the car's fault and it's not my own. You have to hold yourself accountable in those situations. So I think that this will be a good test for Charles Leclerc. In a similar way, when Lewis Hamilton came to Ferrari last year, it was a mental test for him, and it's safe to say that Lewis is past. And I think Charles, he could be going through a mental test now with the way things are going on his side of the garage of Ferrari. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's able to do moving forward. Because I'm sure it's going to, make him a lot stronger as a driver as he continues to press on with the Scuderia. And before we move on to the next question, can we display some, I believe, 2 comments from Jamie, if we can get those on the screen? First comment from James said Lewis Hamilton is a generational talent like Al Unser, AJ Foyt, and the legendary Mario Andretti. Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking at Mount Rushmore motorsports, Lewis Hamilton's name is definitely up there because he's certainly one of the all-time greats. And once he retires from Formula One, sports never going to be the same. We'll never see another Lewis Hamilton because he is certainly one of a kind on and off the track. And you also say you're rooting for Ollie Behrman to rise in position. Yeah, Ollie Behrman, continue to be a bright spot for the Haas team. And, one of the downsides, for a Lewis Hamilton victory today in Barcelona and a Charles Leclerc signing that contract extension is that young Ollie Behrman has to wait even longer, to get that call up to Ferrari. Because I know a lot of people believe that he is going to be the next Ferrari Formula One driver, whether Leclerc leaves or Lewis Hamilton ends up retiring in the next few years. Yeah, but Ollie Behrman, certainly a great young driver that Ferrari has on the books right now. And if there's not any room for him to move up in the near future, I wonder if he could be looking to jump to another team to have an opportunity to run in a better contending car. So I'm sure that will be a storyline we'll have to follow in the future as well with Ollie Behrman. And now I'm going to shift gears a little bit, talk a little bit about Formula One mixed into one of the greatest endurance races in the world. Because when you think about the 24 Hours of Le Mans and what that means to the world, it's often considered to be one of the biggest crown jewel endurance races because it's right up there, with the Indianapolis 500 and the Monaco Grand Prix, which make up the great triple crown of motorsports. Over the years, many Formula One drivers, IndyCar drivers, and drivers from other disciplines of racing have expressed their desire to compete in the race, but many of them have to wait till they're finished full-time racing before they can actually take on Le Mans. However, it's nearly impossible for those drivers to race at Le Mans because the series they compete in regularly is almost always in action. Formula One usually conflicts with Le Mans, and we previously saw Nico Hülkenberg squeeze Le Mans into his busy F1 schedule because that was a rare time when F1 and Le Mans did not conflict, and now it seems like every single year since then, we've seen Le Mans Formula One race on the same day and preventing Formula One drivers from running that event. I know Max Verstappen loves sports car racing. He would love to go win Le Mans overall. He's expressed that. And we got the McLaren hypercar program coming next year. I know Lando Norris, he's been in sports cars before. I know he would want to have an opportunity to go win overall at Le Mans as well. But if we keep this conflicting with Le Mans and Formula One, we might have to wait till the end of their F1 careers before they're able to do something like that, because it is, super unfortunate. And we also saw Fernando Alonso. He had to take a sabbatical for Formula One to run Le Mans because otherwise he would have never been able to win overall a couple of times with the Toyota racing team. Yeah, F1 has been criticized for scheduling Montreal between the Indianapolis 500 and Coca-Cola 600. Many believed it was aimed to draw fans from the Indy 500, but it backfired spectacularly and also predictably as well. Formula E, MotoGP, IndyCar, Supercars, and World Rally Championship were all off this weekend, and each series have had drivers at Le Mans in the past. And looking at NASCAR, Shane Van Gisbergen and Connor Zillage might be two drivers who would run Le Mans if they weren't at Pocono this weekend. Notably, NASCAR had a president at Le Mans a few years ago with the Hendrick Motorsports Garage 56 entry, which they had Jimmy Johnson, Jensen Button, and Mike Rockefeller drive that specially modified Chevrolet Camaro Cup car. And we all know the Rolex 24, the premier endurance race in the United States. It takes place in January and usually avoids conflicts with most racing series outside of Formula E. So, Joe, here's a question I wanted to ask you. Given the prestige that comes with the 24 Hours of Le Mans, should other racing series around the world just decide to take a backseat for this weekend only and let Le Mans be the only race.
I 100% agree with this, that the best thing to do for the motorsport community is to just take the week off and let the Le Mans 24-hour race run without any competition. Now, I know it's easy for fans to say that, members of the media to say this will be so great because we'll see drivers from different series try to get into Le Mans. For the people in the suits running each series, well, that's a weekend we're not making money. That's a weekend off. Well, here's the thing. And I think this is something Formula One really learned this year from Montreal being in the Memorial Day weekend. What made Memorial Day weekend really special was when you have Monaco, Indy 500, and the Coca-Cola 600. For motorsports enthusiasts, that was sort of, as people call, the Christmas for motorsports. But all three sort of complemented each other. You woke up at Monaco, breakfast, you watched that race. Shortly later, the Indianapolis 500, that race, then the Coca-Cola 600, barring any weather delays. All three of them worked well. And I think, as people saw with Monaco not being on that big holiday weekend, it just sort of felt like a ordinary F1 weekend, especially if you're more into motorsports outside F1. There wasn't the big level of excitement of Monaco being the starter of the day where you had the Indy 500 and the Coke 600. Running against the 24 hours Le Mans, you're not enhancing it for anybody, really. You're competing with the 24 hours Le Mans pretty much from Saturday all the way to Sunday when they end the race. So people that would want to watch Le Mans go to the track, I think they'll go there regardless of what's the other event Formula One's at. This year was Barcelona, Spain. Good turnout we saw out there. They even brought Marc Marquez out. I oddly put that he was a former MotoGP rider. He's still an active MotoGP rider, but they'll try to bring the stars out. And this is where I just wonder, why are we doing Formula One? As if you didn't learn from what happened in Indianapolis. I get it. You want your drivers to only be seen in F1 cars. You don't want to see a Max Verstappen go to Le Mans, because even though that'd be great for the fans to, hey, we want to go to Le Mans because Max Verstappen's going to be there. He's a great Formula One driver. That opens the door for, hey, I sort of like sports car a little bit more because it's these endurance races. Maybe it gets more attention to WEC. I get it. It's a business, but I feel like people are going to start getting tired of it. They're going to get frustrated of it when they're really seeing that this is a cash grab move by the FIA. Other series like NASCAR, they're mostly oval racers, so I give them a little bit more of a pass. But now that you got Shane Van Gisbergen, Connor Zillage, I think there's worth the discussion. Hey, do we want to race on the same week as Le Mans? They only have one race weekend off a year almost. Can't hurt to have a second one. It just happens to be the Le Mans 24 hours. I think that's just good exposure to your fans of, hey, check out Le Mans 24 hours. If you enjoy that, well, come down to Daytona for the Rolex 24 hours in January. There's so many opportunities to make this better for the fans, for the drivers, because at the end of the day, we know the drivers want to do this. They're racers. I just really want F1 to say, hey, we got a big boom going on. Let's work to where we continue growing, which every sports series should be doing, but not at the cost of running side by side with the 24 hours of Le Mans. The Indianapolis 500, I'm hoping they really learned their lesson. Don't do that again because it failed spectacularly. Go back to Monaco or to a race where it's early in the morning, like at Azerbaijan or any other European race. Race ends, then focus goes to Indianapolis. You had your time in the spotlight. Do it where it complements it, makes it better for the fans in motorsports, for the drivers, but not an effort like this where, what are we doing? I mean, Barcelona, Spain, that's a great track. I think that would be great if people were to say, hey, everybody's talking about Lewis Hamilton getting that big win. That's the big story. But a lot of people are talking about and said, well, we were watching Le Mans because as we're going to talk about in the results, the Ferrari winning streak is over. Let that shine. I think that would just do really good for the sport. And at the end of the day, if you have a driver like Max Verstappen go out there, win the 24 Hours Le Mans overall, he's going to draw media attention to when he comes back to F1 the next race, because you're going to be talking about this is the guy that just won at Le Mans a week ago, and here he is at this track race in F1. It's good for everybody. Let's make it was the right thing for the motorsports fans, the enthusiasts, and for the drivers.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said, Joe. I think it would be very beneficial for the motorsports community as a whole if this was just the Le Mans weekend and nothing else. I understand, you may have some other racing series out there, but we're really talking about our major grid ranking series that we cover here at Grid Network. If all of those series, were off this weekend, it would be a lot easier, to put a lot of effort into covering the 24 Hours of Le Mans rather than, having one hand here and one hand there and trying to follow this and that. And giving, since we cover other racing series, I know yesterday, Joe, I had to focus on the Rally Auto Parts Series race at Pocono, and so I had to spend several hours away from Le Mans. And then, when I got back to the race, it was kind of like out of sorts, because when you're watching an endurance race, you like to stay consistent with it and get into a rhythm with the race. And then, once that rhythm is, messed up because you have to focus on another part of the racing community, it gets kind of difficult, to continue following that as closely, as you were. And I just feel like that Le Mans, just like the Indianapolis 500 is, one of the top 5 greatest races that we have on the planet right now and in the sports car world. I think Le Mans is definitely right up there at number one. And I think if we had drivers, coming from multiple different racing series, that would be, real hit story. If we had representatives from NASCAR, IndyCar, we had some in from Formula E, like some supercar. Now we've seen some supercars drivers, go over there running in the past. And SVG was a supercars regular. He ran the 24 Hours of Le Mans and then one of the GT categories. I just feel like that it's just it will do the sport a lot of justice if we were able to have, some. I'm not going to say that the drivers we saw in this year's race, in the years past, have always been high caliber drivers, but we haven't seen a lot of drivers at Le Mans who are, I guess, transcend the sport, right? Like at Max Verstappen, like him been at Le Mans, Orlando Norris, and a McLaren hypercar next year. Those guys will help transcend the sport because of the major platform they already have. And like you're saying, Joe, it would be huge, say at Max Verstappen, let's say goes and races Le Mans next year with Ford in hypercar and wins overall, and then comes back and race Formula One the next week. That would be a huge deal, for motorsports and the F1 paddock as well, to have a newly crowned overall winner in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, return to the paddock in that fashion. Or look what happened when Nico Hülkenberg won, a handful of years ago, right? Nico Hülkenberg, he was just a midfield Formula One driver, and you could have sworn he was a world champion with the way he was greeted. The very next week, when Nico Hülkenberg came back to the Formula One paddock after winning Le Mans overall with Porsche, they treated him like he was a king or a celebrity in the F1 paddock because they were just so impressed. People were like, wow, I didn't know Nico Hülkenberg had that in him, because, you never seen him do anything like that in the Formula One world. And I just feel like, that would create, additional great storylines for us to follow and enjoy here in the sport. And if you look at, all the series, that were off this weekend, to my knowledge, we didn't see a single full-time IndyCar driver racing the 24 Hours of Le Mans this year. I know in the past we've seen full-time IndyCar drivers go over to Le Mans, but Joe, that's another problem that we have to look at. Is some of these series, in the type of scheduling they have, right? We know with the IndyCar series, they only have they have a good number of races per year now in IndyCar, but look at the schedule that they just come off, right? They did the Sancio Grand Prix on the IMS road course. That's one. Then the next weekend they had Indianapolis 500 qualifying, and then after Indianapolis 500 qualifying, a third straight weekend they had the Indianapolis 500, and then after the Indy 500, you raced on the streets of Detroit a fourth straight weekend, and then after that you had a late Sunday night race at Gateway, so that's 5. And if you're following IndyCar very closely, number 6 on the list, a few days after Gateway, they traveled up to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, to do a test session at Road America. So that's 6 straight items happening, in just a span of a month. And so, Joe, my question to you is like, why would an IndyCar driver, after running a brutal schedule like that, why would you want to go run the 24 Hours of Le Mans, right? Because you have to be absolutely exhausted, coming through a busy month of May like that into early June. And so, although there was no scheduling conflict between IndyCar and Le Mans this year, try to give those drivers a chance to run. I can't imagine, the IndyCar drivers would be too thrilled to, to go on this busy stretch during the month of May into June and then try to go run a 24-hour race, that would obviously, beat you down physically and mentally. And then, IndyCar is back in action next week at Road America. So unless you're an absolute workaholic who just loves racing and never wants to stop, that's the lifestyle for you. But I can imagine most of them, enjoy sitting at the house today or out on an island somewhere having a vacation before you get back to action next week. So that's one of the reasons why I feel like we didn't see any IndyCar drivers in the 24 Hours of Le Mans this year, because I'm sure if some of them wanted to get a seat, they certainly could have given their credentials. But the busy schedule that they have here in the month of May, that was just something they probably just didn't make it feasible, just for their own personal, physical, and mental well-being. And also on the NASCAR side of things, it will obviously be hard for one of those guys to go run the 24 Hours of Le Mans because, number one, not all the NASCAR drivers have filed, with the FIA to be rated either bronze, silver, gold, or platinum. So that's one hurdle there. And then you got to, do the Le Mans orientation thing at the test stand. That's also hard because you would probably have to miss a cup race or whatever to try to go do that. You have to do like the day in the simulator in Paris or whatever. It's just a lot of stuff you have to do as a rookie at Le Mans. And given where the Cup Series schedule is right now, 38 weeks per year, it's going to be virtually impossible for any full-time Cup driver to go over to Le Mans. So kind of like Jimmy Johnson did when he was in the Garage 56 entry, the only way a NASCAR driver can do Le Mans is basically you have to retire from full-time racing. It would be great to see someone in their prime go over there, or very young, to try to go over there and race at Le Mans instead of wait until most of their skills have declined over the years and you don't see them at their absolute best. It would have been great to see, let's say, a Jimmy Johnson in the hypercar class while he was in his prime, right? Instead of wait until he was well past his prime to see what he could do in that Garage 56 car. Yeah, so I feel like the other racing series we see around the world need to think about how they're scheduling their calendars if we wanted to make this weekend a true Le Mans weekend and nothing else, because the NASCAR schedule is brutal, 38 weekends per year, and then IndyCar as well. This stretched the last month. I understand why we didn't see a single IndyCar driver in that race.
Yeah, with IndyCar, I mean, as you mentioned, it's been all month of May, and you kick out the month of May with the Grand Prix, then the Indianapolis 500, weeks of practice, the qualifying session, there's bump days, a lot of stress. And then after Indianapolis, very next weekend, we're in Detroit racing. Following that, the weekend after, we were at Gateway.
And then a test day at Road America.
Test day at Road America. They are exhausted. So I get it. If IndyCar says, hey, we're going to be off this weekend for Le Mans, and if anybody wants to go, let us know. Because in 2027, when we publish a schedule, maybe there could be a break. I get it. The race after the weekend after the Indianapolis 500 is a good TV opportunity to keep that momentum going. So I understand, okay, you're going to race the weekend after Indy. Does IndyCar really want to have 2 weekends off leading up to Le Mans, but you still have the busy month of May where drivers may just say, no, month of May, just want to spend some time with focus on the team, the championship effort. So it's really hard, and I get it. Sometimes just the nature of the business. Me, it just, especially when it's like, I think a lot of people have been getting more critical of F1 after what happened with Indianapolis Motor Speed, the Indianapolis 500 and Montreal, and just, what are you doing? Because we've seen how F1, when they're racing in America, we got the same start time as NASCAR. Okay, you really are just trying to make it where making it easy for the fans. Try to Indy 500, and I think a lot of people are like, "What are you doing?" I think this weekend, it's like you got a great story of Lewis Hamilton getting the win, but really a lot of attention was on Le Mans, and it's just, we could do better as a sport, as an industry.
Yeah, for sure. And and hopefully we will be able to do better as an industry in the future, because I feel like the way we've always done things with scheduling all these races on all the weekends, I feel like we're not living in that era anymore. Sometimes I feel like more is not always the best. I feel like less can be more sometimes. So if we were able to cut down the number of races we have on some of the schedules, and like spread them out a little bit more and have more off weekends, I think that would be more beneficial to where we are in today's day and age. But thankfully it's not what it used to be back in the day. It seemed like we were racing every weekend and every other weekday. that there was. I mean that's kind of the culture they have right now. If you watch dirt racing, like in the sprint cars, like sometimes I'll be looking at the World of Outlaws in the High Limit series. They'll be racing on Saturday and Sunday, and then I'll look and be like, oh, they're racing on a Monday or a Tuesday night as well. I'm like, man, that you really have to love racing to to be a part to want to be a part of those series. And I believe we have another comment from Jamie. If we can pull that up. And Jamie says, does the Rolex 24 race at Daytona have Formula One drivers compete regularly? Any idea if Kimi or Ollie plan on running it in 2027? As far as Kimi Antonelli and Ollie Bearman, obviously I have no idea, but if I had to bet on, I'm thinking probably not, especially after what Toto Wolff told Kimi Antonelli, because Kimi made a comment about wanting to go run the 24 hours of Nürburgring after Max Verstappen competed in that race, and Toto was like, Kimi, first you're gonna have to win more races and world championships, before you're able to do that. Max has already done that, with Formula One, 4 world championships and all the Grand Prix victories that he has. So Max has the credentials, to go race in some of the premier events in the world, and be a Formula One driver. I feel like Kimi is just starting out in his career, and he probably needs to focus on establishing himself in Formula One before he starts branching out to other racing series. So as long as he's a Mercedes driver, probably not going to see Toto Wolff allow him to run those races. But in regards to the first question you had about the Rolex 24, we have seen some Formula One drivers, run that event in the past. I think active Formula One drivers in the past, like while they're actually in the sport. I remember Lance Stroll ran it a couple of times. He was in the top category going for the overall win, but did not win it. We also saw Fernando Alonso in the Rolex 24 as well. I believe he was with Wayne. He was at Wayne Taylor Racing, and then also before he was a Formula One driver, when he was still in the junior category, Lando Norris also ran the Rolex 24. I believe he was with United Autosports in an LMP2 entry on the year he ran the 24 hours of Daytona. But we don't always see Formula One drivers, or active Formula One drivers at Daytona while they're currently racing in Formula One. Like the times when we've seen them, and they've been like on a sabbatical from F1, or their F1 career had ended, kind of like Felipe Nasr, who used to be a Formula One driver. Now he's become quite a star in the IMSA competition and for Porsche as well. But Max Verstappen, he's also said that he would be interested in running Daytona in the future, but I'm not sure where he would run if he decides to do that. But it would be great to have some F1 drivers competing in the Rolex 24 in the future.
Well, I understand. Agree. It would be great to see that, especially since it's in January. I mean, I get there's off-season testing. I understand Toto Wolff's points of, hey, Max Verstappen has all these accomplishments. Once you get to that level, we could talk about, having you potentially do that. But end of the day, we need you, Kimi, to get us the championship first and foremost before you start talking about double duty. So be interesting to see. And then also, thanks, my F1 getting the show, but you're teaching me a lot. That's why we love about this show. You can ask us questions, share your opinions. This is we all do this because we love motorsports. And of course, if you love motorsports, Le Mans 24 hours is the big one. So let's jump into the Le Mans coverage. For the first time in 4 years, Toyota Racing is back on top at the premier crown jewel endurance race in the world. With less than an hour to go, the number 7 Toyota, Kamui Kobayashi, passed his sister car, the number 8 Toyota, Sebastian Buemi from Formula E, in the Porsche curves for the overall lead and didn't look back. Toyota and Kobayashi shared the overall wins with their co-drivers of Mike Conway, former IndyCar driver, and Nick DeVries, of course, as we remember, Formula E and F1, scoring Toyota's first 24-hour of Le Mans victory in 1,463 days. The number 20 team, WRT BMW, made a late race move on the number 8 Toyota to finish second overall. Bit of a surprise there, with the second Toyota hypercar entry taking the final spot on the podium. So 1-3 for Toyota, with that BMW in the middle. Kobe, when it comes to how this all played out, how impressed were you by Toyota's pace and their ability to control the race from a strategic standpoint?
You kind of remind me of the Toyota of old, before they went on their 4-year drought in the 24 hours of Le Mans. I know there was I believe a safety car, full course caution early on in the 24-hour race, and then Toyota, they decided to come in And when they got their service, it propelled both of them, up the running order. I mean, the number 8 car started towards the front, but it was the number 7 that was, trapped back there. And, they gained a significant amount of track position, and they basically, just stayed there for the rest of the race. I thought Toyota, made the right call, obviously, during, at the start of this season to can the car that they had, because they were struggling quite a bit with the previous version of their hypercar that they developed. So they decided to build a brand new one, and it really turned out well, because this car really, took to the Le Mans well, and they were extremely fast, executed perfect on the strategy. And then we saw the number 7 and at the top step of the podium at the very end. Thought that was, obviously a great drive by Kamui Kobayashi, who's one of the highly respected drivers, not just in the FI World Endurance Championship paddock, but, around the world. Good for him to get an overall victory in Le Mans, and also as well for his teammates, Nick DeVries, who, ended up losing his Formula One drive in dramatic fashion, and to be able to add a crown jewel race to his resume like this is great for him. And also Mike Conway as well, who's been a long-time driver for Toyota Racing, as rumors swirl that he could potentially be out at the end of the current season and be looking for him a ride in 2027. So a very good win for that number 7 Toyota team. And honestly, I thought the number 8 Toyota was going to win. I thought they had the best driver lineup and entering the race. I didn't have much confidence in the number 7, but I'm glad they ended up proving me wrong and getting a well-deserved victory as Circuit de la Sarre. But yeah, I was very impressed with the race Toyota was able to run, and I was really shocked when I saw that it's been nearly 1,500 days since Toyota's last overall win at Le Mans. So for them, given all the hard work they've done the last few years, it was certainly well worth the wait for them.
Well worth the wait for the Toyota team. It has to feel really good, and it was really cool seeing Nick DeVries, a driver where we know he's doing Formula E. A lot of folks were hoping for big things for him when it went to F1. To see him get this big win and how much it meant to him was really special. Reflecting on some of the things discussed during our Le Mans preview a few days ago, Ferrari's 3-year reign, well, that came to an end compared to the last few years. Ferrari didn't have the pace, as the number 51 Ferrari finished 5th overall, and the number 83 Ferrari came home in 7th, with number 50 Ferrari retiring. We also talked about Cadillac needing to have a good race, and while the speed was there again, they have to feel disappointed about the results, Kobe. The number 12 Jota Cadillac was running well in the final hours and had a shot at the podium before fading to 4th overall. We saw the team's sister car, the number 38, retire from the race due to a power steering issue, and we saw devastation on the face of Le Mans native Sebastian Bourdais, who came up just short of winning his home race. The number 101 Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillac, the only entry representing IMSA's GTP class, finished 9th overall after being issued multiple penalties for not following procedures during the full coach caution and the slow zone. Looking at the other manufacturers, BMW had a strong race with the number 20 Alpine. A quiet race, Aston Martin performance improved, and Peugeot struggled as many expected, with Genesis having some bright spots in Le Mans on their debut, but also had reliability issues with the car shutting off and on. Kobe, I know when it comes to the hybrid cars, it always seems like this is the class everyone watch to see what happens, but did it play out as you expected?
Yeah, for the most part, I think we're pretty much spot on and how we thought things were going to go. I don't think anything happened out of the ordinary, that was like a major shocker. And yeah, just starting at the top, we were questioning whether a Ferrari had the pace or not to win this race, but we were proved right, by saying it looked like, that the other manufacturers had either caught up, or Ferrari, success has finally caught up to them, with their balance of performance, end up hurting their performance. It's just, just did not have the pace, and they were never truly in the fight, for the overall win. And end up seeing, one of those Ferraris, you mentioned the number 50, end up retiring from the race. And the other Ferraris, they were basically just there and did not really have a chance of winning overall. So unfortunate for the prancing horse there. But as we also mentioned on Grid Tonight last Wednesday, Ferrari, plans to bring a significantly updated car next season, because they realize that with others bringing new cars and updates to their existing cars as well, is gonna, at some point, the advantage Ferrari have is gonna be gone. So they're going to have to, up their game and bring a better car for next year, better suited to the 24 Hours of Le Mans so they can get back, on the top step of the podium. But yeah, we were optimistic that Cadillac could have a good racing for the second straight year. Good pace from General Motors, but just did not get the result. For Hertz Team Jota, I know they have to be extremely disappointed not to get on the podium because it really felt like a Cadillac should have been on the podium in this race. It was unfortunate, with the 12 being the last one, the last bullet in the gun up towards the front. We thought they were going to have a chance at the podium, but, they just faded towards the end. And that was that. And, it's certainly a bitter pill to swallow there for the number 12. And then we saw, their sister car, the Mighty 38. They had a lot of speed as well. I thought they were going to be able to, win this race, but they had like a power steering issue. And if you saw the cameras in the Le Mans garage, Le Mans native Sebastien Bourdais, who was born in Le Mans, France, the former IndyCar star and champion, he was absolutely devastated because this is his home race and he's not getting any younger. And it seems like whenever he's been in a position to win Le Mans overall, something happened that's always fall through. And this is like the one thing that Sebastien Bourdais has left to accomplish in his storied career is win overall at his, in his hometown of Le Mans. And he wasn't able to do it because of a $2 part, as was stated. Yeah, so that's certainly brutal when your entire race is ruined by a part that costs a mere $2. So that was a hard pill for them to swallow. And you mentioned the Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillac. I will say, Joe, it was kind of funny to me that Wayne Taylor Racing, which has struggled significantly since they expanded to a 2-car operation in IMSA, ran extremely well at Le Mans. And I credit that to their close alliance that they had with Hertz Team Jota. But nice to see Wayne Taylor, having some good fortune over there in France. But with the penalties and stuff, I wonder if that comes down to, inexperience, because the rules in IMSA and the ACO rules that they have in the World Endurance Championship are completely different. So, and plus, you don't see slow zones in IMSA. So it's obviously very different. Then you had the multiple safety cars and trying to bring, like the field together under full course caution. It's easy to understand why a team, with an IMSA mindset might struggle to adapt to ACO style rules. I'm sure some of the ACO teams that we see at the Rolex 24 who come over at the beginning of the year, I'm sure some of them struggle with the IMSA rules as well because they're simply, just not used to following those rules. So I think all in all, while Cadillac had the pace, certainly had to feel disappointed with the way, things played out for them. And then also as mentioned, great job. Well, one of the BMWs did well. Unfortunately, the other one got damaged and had to, go to the garage. Alpine, I know our own Matt White from the Great Endurance Performance that predicted one of the Alpines would win, but in their final Le Mans, they were pretty much quiet. They weren't good, but they also weren't bad either. They were just, just kind of average and, just had a quiet race with like no major issues from their cars. It was very impressed to see the Aston Martin Valkyrie improve its performance from both of its cars. Being able to make it to the checkered flag, which is a big deal because last year they were quite far off and they still have a ways to go with the program, but they're a lot closer this year than they were last year. So it's nice to see that progress from them. Peugeot, I don't know what that program's going to do. We've seen some flashes of brilliance from them in other races. I'm sure they obviously, want to do well for their home race at Le Mans, but for whatever reason, cars does not have the pace and they were, pretty much slow the entire race weekend. And Genesis, thought for their first Le Mans, they had a lot of good positives to take away from it, but like we see with new cars, reliability issues really plagued them. I remember seeing that Genesis, shut off multiple times on the racetrack. It was running well, and then it just stopped, and then they just sat there for a while before they had to just recycle it, and get it going again. Yeah, unfortunate, there for Genesis, but they're the beginning of their story in sports car racing. I'm sure that when we come to Le Mans, a year from now, this will be a completely different story, and that car will be in a much better position. But all in all, I feel like the hypercar class played out as we really expected it to.
Yeah, not so much as folks expected to. Taking a look at the rest of the class winners, Inter-Europol competition went 1-2 in LMP2 after number 30 Duquesne Team Prototype experienced a brake failure. Heartbreaker for Dorian Penn, Julian Andelauer, and Richard Verhus, who dominated the majority of the race, but the LMP2 win went to the number 43 Orca of Jacob Minchowski, Tom Dillner, and Nick Yeloli, and the LMGT3 number 33 TF Sports Corvette Z06 GT3.R. Always great to see the Corvettes at Le Mans. Nick Katzberg, Johnny Edgar, and Ben Keaton took class honors. The FIA World Endurance Championship returns to action on Sunday, June 12th for the 6 hours of Sao Paulo at Interlagos, Brazil. Phenomenal track, 6 hours of that. Especially if there's some weather, that could be a very fun race to watch. Don't miss that out. With that said, though, encourage everyone to subscribe so you don't miss any of our programs. Grid Rising tomorrow. We got Grid tonight. So it's time for our shining moment, Kobe, to end off this show.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the World Endurance Championship back in action on Sunday, July the 12th. At Interlagos. Then we got another fun one after that. We got the Lone Star Le Mans win the World Endurance Championship race at Circuito de Americas in Austin, Texas. They'll be here on home soil in the United States. So if you love watching the 24 Hours of Le Mans, you can actually come see them here stateside at COTA. So that's always a fun race. Really happy they brought back the Lone Star Le Mans event. And as Joe said, we're almost out of time for tonight because almost time for Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Hopefully my Carolina Hurricanes will pull it off tonight, and if not tonight, in Game 7. So I want to get out of here so I can get into hockey mode. So let us know down in the chat below if you're watching here on live on replay. What's the one thing that stood out to you the most from this racing weekend? Whether it was from the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the Barcelona Catalunya Grand Prix in Spain, or NASCAR at Pocono. And I'll start off with you, Joe. What's your one shining moment?
My shining moment from NASCAR, the number 42, John Hunter Nemechek. This is a driver that we saw he came to the NASCAR Cup Series, had a rookie season. Didn't go exactly that great. Went back to the lower series. He came back again with this opportunity with Legacy Motor Club. A lot of hype at the beginning of this season because at the end of last season, he was starting to put together some good results. I remember Jimmy Johnson in an interview talked about how he has improved. Then the season hasn't been off to that great of a start, and I think some people were starting to wonder, maybe John Hunter Nemechek's not cut out to be in the Cup Series. I know a couple of times, especially last year, I was bold enough to pick him for pick a winner a couple of times and watching for him having a breakthrough race, getting that win. I'll be honest, I was starting to think, can he prove he could have a good solid race, a good strong finish? Well, he did that today at Pocono. He might actually be feeling disappointed he didn't get a chance to be closer to the lead for victory. But that says something compared to just, hey, we got a top 10 finish, let's celebrate. We had a good shot. We could have gotten this race win if things gone a little bit different here and there. We're on the right track. So that has to be a big confidence boost for him, that 42 team, and everyone there. So that is my shining moment.
Yeah, that's certainly a great shining moment. And my shining moment is going to be what I've talked about earlier in Formula One, as Lewis Hamilton getting back to the top step of the podium. I know he ended up getting a sprint race win last year in Shanghai with Ferrari, but, a sprint race is not the same as a Grand Prix. And to finally, check that box off your list. As Lewis mentioned, this was one of his dreams, to be not just a Formula One race winning driver, but to be a Ferrari Formula One race winning driver. So he adds his name to a list of drivers in history who have won driving in Ferrari colors for that iconic team. And Lewis Hamilton, he's been open about how the last few years of his career has been going, since losing that championship to Max Verstappen in Abu Dhabi in the way that he did, to the quality of cars Mercedes that was given him, was not good at all, to go into Ferrari year one and not being what he expected, struggling quite a bit to match Charles Leclerc and get a grip on the car. Lewis was basically, he didn't say it outright, but I think Lewis was starting to believe that he was washed up as a race car driver and that he was no longer the guy that he once was, that he was already past his prime and in decline. But after, hearing people tell him, remember who you are, that you are still Lewis Hamilton, that you are still the guy who have won all these world championships and Grand Prix races, that you still have it in you. It may come differently now, but you're still capable of getting the job done. And Lewis listened, to those comments, from the fans, that he should continue to believe in himself, that he is still a high caliber driver and at the pinnacle of motorsports. And since, Ferrari has given him a much better car this year compared to last year, and he was able to, obviously, he was fortunate enough to get that well-timed virtual safety car to help aid him and get him out front in that clean air. It showed that he can still get the job done. And I wonder what this win is going to do for Lewis Hamilton from a morale and confidence level, like when we get to the next race weekend and the weekends after that. Are we going to see a brand new Lewis Hamilton? Are we going to see the same Lewis Hamilton we saw during his peak years at Mercedes? Are we going to see him take that Ferrari, to pole position after pole position? Are we going to see him on the podium multiple times the rest of the season. We're going to see multiple race wins from Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. Will he be able to, at some point, catch up to Kimi Antonelli if he's on form and Antonelli, has more days like today? There's certainly a lot of questions, left to be answered, but it was really good to see Lewis Hamilton of old today and seeing how much that win meant to him. You saw he was extremely emotional because this was a day he's been waiting for a long time. And hopefully he remembers that, he's still that guy and he's not done yet. And there's still plenty left in the tank.
Plenty left in the tank for Lewis Hamilton. And a big thank you for the super chat. The fans of Motorsports are well-versed and dedicated fans as well. I 100% agree with that. And he also mentioned his shining moment. Denny Hamlin in 3 in a row despite not being a fan. And thank you as always for tuning in. We'll update the leaderboard for Grid Rising as you, Jamie, have taken the lead in the leaderboard with multiple super chats. And we encourage everyone super chat. Buy me a coffee. We'll thank you on the air. If we don't see it, we'll thank you the next time we go on the air. And you can invest in us through YouTube paid membership or Patreon investor. Gloria is our newest one. And of course, Nico, Crystal, Matthew, David, Robin, Mark, Deshelle, and Colin have been investing in us for quite some time. So thank you so much for that. And across social media at Grid Network TV. Matthew's working on his article. We'll be getting the grid ranking up shortly as well too across social media. And of course, on the air tomorrow with Grid Rising and then Grid Tonight on Wednesday. And then we'll do it all over again next race weekend. For Kobe, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time.